Welcome, everyone. Our first Shabbat post-Passover. And when I was preparing this teaching, I was, thinking about how it's always interesting to note how our calendrical cycle and our holidays overlap and relate to where we are in the reading of the Torah and our parshiot. So, of course, in our calendrical cycle, we're emerging from Pesach, from Passover, where we've really been steeping in the story of the Exodus, of Yetziat Mitzrayim, our leaving Egypt, and the narrowness of slavery. So this theme of liberation has been really alive, as well as the moment in our story in which we are birthed, really. We are birthed as a nation, as a people, Yisrael. So we've been reborn. And who is it that has been born? Who is it that we are? So this week's Parsha Shmini details the inauguration of the Mishkan and describes the ritual on the day after the 7 days of priestly ordination. It also includes dietary laws and other laws for purification at length, along with the instruction that Israel must make themselves holy. It actually says it twice. It says, "You shall be holy because I am holy. I am the Lord your God, and you shall sanctify yourselves and be holy because I am holy." Really emphasizing this notion that we must be holy because God is holy. And our Torah teaches that the people of Israel are a holy people. This parsha details the inauguration of the priests, some of their first acts in the Mishkan. And our Torah actually teaches that we are a nation. All of us are a nation of priests, priestesses. And actually, this inauguration of the sanctuary, of the Mishkan, in a way is symbolic of our purpose as a people, which is to build a home for the divine here on earth, in this material realm, in our places of dwelling, in our very bodies. Yael Shai, a wonderful friend and teacher at IJS, teaches that she reminds us that this coming into that sense of holiness that we are is a kind of aliyah. It's actually, it's an uprighting. It's a way that we need to rise up. She reminds us that we were not just brought out of slavery, but actually brought up from the land of Egypt, from that narrowness, hama'aleh. So the movement is one of being raised up out of the muck, she teaches, as we are made in the image of holiness and are holy ourselves. And this is a big deal. It's a big deal. And it can also be scary, right? It can be scary to embody who and what we really are, to come into that full posture of uprightness, of holiness in the way that God is holy. And there can be a profound vulnerability in fully uprighting ourselves, right? It's like we are sitting up straight, we're opening our hearts rather than in that posture of crouching, of protecting. We're here making ourselves available to directly encounter the truth of our experience and to face reality, to face the world from that posture. And yet in that openness and that vulnerability, there's also great strength and truth. And as our parsha communicates, it is our imperative to raise ourselves up in this way. We must be holy and we must treat ourselves in that way, for God is holy. And this process of becoming holy, of becoming fitting vessels for the divine, this is also our task in this time of the Omer, as Mark mentioned. The Omer is this 49-day period between Passover and Shavuot, where in biblical times, sheaves of wheat were brought as offerings to the Holy Temple. And today, this is a time of reflecting on our midot, our character traits, as we prepare ourselves to receive revelation on Shavuot. And we do so in a practice of counting the Omer, where each day we reflect upon a different combination of soul qualities called sefirot on the Kabbalistic tree of life. Interestingly, Parshat Shmini begins on the 8th day, right? The 8th day after the priestly inauguration. And today is the 8th day of the Omer. So what is this number 8? What does the number 8 mean to us? I want to share just a beautiful midrash, a story from Breshit Rabbah, from the Garden of Eden, which is that after Adam and Eve were told to leave the garden, God actually allowed them to enjoy one last Shabbat in the garden, the 7th day. And then they had to leave. They left on the 8th day. And on that 8th day, after Shabbat, God taught them how to make fire by rubbing stones together. And this is why we make Havdalah on the 8th day. So on the 8th day after Shabbat, after the creation of the world where God creates light, right? Now we as human beings create fire. Until now, we've been passive, we've received, and now it's our time to be active. We must partner with God. Similarly, in our story, in the story of Passover, God brought us out of Egypt, brought us out of that narrowness, and now it's up to us to do the other half of the work, to prepare ourselves so that we can actually be ready for revelation. It's our work to do. And so, as I mentioned, today is the 8th day of the Omer, which is a day of chesed within Gevurah. As Mark mentioned, this is the week of Gevurah, of discerning strength, of boundaries. And today is acknowledging the way that those boundaries are in service to chesed, to loving kindness. And indeed, the Sefirah of Gevurah that we focus on this week is all about becoming that vessel, right? Gevurah, to have a container with boundaries so that all of that beautiful life force energy, the abundance of chesed, of loving kindness that wants to flow into our world, actually has a container to land in and to be channeled through. So we are creating vessels within ourselves, within our lives, so that the divine can dwell within and flow through us and into the world. And so I want to invite us into our sit for today with that inspiration. What does it mean to become this fitting vessel for the divine? To find that posture of Gevurah, of containment, of stability, of structure, so that the chesed, the loving kindness, the blessing can dwell within us and flow through us. And so we'll begin with our posture, and I want to invite you to just settle into your body. Find a posture that will be supportive for mindful presence. Inviting the body to relax, perhaps noticing if there's anywhere you're holding tension. Gently softening. And at the same time, finding that sense of uprightness in the spine. We're not here just to relax, but also to be awake for our lives, to be here, present and alert. So finding that sense of uprightness, of here-ness. That sense of openness to this experience. Perhaps even inviting a broadening in the chest and the shoulders. An opening of the heart to meet what is here for us. And perhaps there might be a sense of vulnerability in this openness. Can we soften into that? We welcome that too. And perhaps there's also a sense of strength, sturdiness. Can we notice that too? And so with the strength of Gevurah, we commit to the simplicity of this posture. We commit to stillness in the body, to being here, finding some stability, some solidity. And the posture that we bring to meet this moment. With some firmness, with that sense of commitment, settling into create this fitting container for our experience, for our practice. Allowing the stillness of this posture itself to be that container as we return our attention again and again to presence. Allowing thoughts, sensation, feeling, and any other way that our aliveness manifests to flow through, our awareness. Perhaps allowing the posture itself be the anchor for our attention, the mind. Noticing what is arising with loving kindness, allowing it to arise and pass away, to flow through our awareness, all on its own. As we return again and again to presence, to awareness. With a gentleness and also a commitment, a firmness. The heat, Kadosh Tem, V'hitem kadoshim, ki kadosh ani. And you shall sanctify yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. How might we sanctify ourselves even now through how we pay attention, through how we inhabit these bodies, these hearts and minds. I invite you to take 5 deep breaths. As we conclude our practice together. And as you're ready, you can gently open your eyes if they've been closed. Noticing what is present for you now. And we'll rejoin the community here on Zoom. Thank you all so much for your presence and your practice today. And may this invitation to sanctify ourselves in awareness of our holiness as beings made in the image of our Creator, of the divine, guide us through this Shabbat and this journey as we embark on this journey of the Omer, of reflection and preparation and realignment with our truth, with our deep prayers. We come more and more into our wholeness, into awareness of our wholeness. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Friends, we seal our practice today, as we do each time, offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or observing a yahrzeit, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, to do so. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, to be part of the Minyan, the community of support and comfort for those who are. If you'd like to put the name or names of anyone you're honoring in the chat box now or after you recite Kaddish, you're welcome to do so. And we extend our support and love and condolences to those who are in mourning. Thanks to Kat for sharing the words of the mourner's Kaddish on the screen. And if you're reciting it, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit to join me. And you can unmute at this time as well. Hitkadash Shemei Rabbah Yama Divrach Yivute V'Alich Malchute Chayechon Yom Yechon Chaye B'Chol Beit Yisrael Ha'agala U'Mad Ariv Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Elam Omaya Barach V'Yitzrach V'Ar Imam V'Yisrael Adar
Al Shemay de Kusha. Shivata, Divata, Shlama, Rabba, Mishma, Yim, Aleinu, Kol Yisrael, Shalom, Bimroma, Shalom, Kol Yisrael,
Amen. Friends, thanks for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, of course, we want to wish you a sweet and restorative Shabbat. We hope we'll see you next week. We have a full week of practice scheduled next week, Monday through Friday, as well as our yoga studio will be open for business on Monday at 11 a.m. with Ken or Lizzie. And we look forward to that very much and are grateful to be back together. Of course, we hope you had a beautiful and meaningful Pesach, and look forward to our journey through the Omer together day by day, at least Monday through Fridays. If you're staying on and would like to join us, you're welcome to for, excuse me a second. Spring allergies. Welcome to join us for conversation with Rebecca about the beautiful teaching and practice for today. And we're just to share reflections on the practice and or to use this time to sit with our community. And you can always, of course, turn the volume down or off on your computer and just use this time to continue to sit with the instructions that Rebecca gave us today. But if you're joining us for a conversation and want to ask a question, please just preface in the chat box your comment with question in all caps. Keep an eye on that. Welcome to those of you who were first timers who joined us today. Always wonderful to have people come along and join us on the way. Thanks, Rebecca. Just picking up where we left off. So two things occurred to me that I thought might be worth exploring a little bit more. One is, you I think in quoting El Shai, you were talking about like the elevation element, right? Going up. And that imagery like resonated with me and made me think a little bit about other places like in our tradition where there is this emphasis on ascent, on going up, right? Like, and realize that there's just a principle in Jewish tradition of ma'alim bikdusha, of increasing in holiness. Usually I know that in relation to the Hanukkah candles, where there's the famous argument between Hillel and Shammai about, whether, you should light the candles in ascending order, 1 through, so that you have 8 on the final night, or decrease because the oil was used up. Of course, Hillel, wins the day as usual with that. But the same is true of the Omer. We don't count down to Sinai. We don't start with 49 and go down to 0 and then blast off. And you were talking about kind of the seal on this dedication of the tabernacle and the 8th day, as whole purpose of it is to be is awareness of kedusha, of holiness, increasing awareness of kedusha. We sometimes just talk about increasing awareness, but actually it's really, I think, was so important that you mentioned, well, no, it's not just awareness for awareness' sake. It's awareness of kedusha, of holiness. So I wanted to throw that out to you a little bit, both in terms of the question about this emphasis on ascent, on increasing, but also maybe about how the word, the Hebrew kedusha and the English holiness are hard words, to kind of communicate. Like, what are we really talking about there, So, and since this period, the Omer really is about practicing for the purpose of increasing awareness of kedusha and being instruments or vessels, like you were saying, for kedusha, we better talk a little bit about what exactly do we mean by kedusha here, holiness.
Yeah. Yeah, what exactly do we mean by holiness? It's such a beautiful question.
Maybe not exactly.
What exactly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Precisely, what do you mean?
right. Well, I mean, I think for starters, I'll just acknowledge that, holiness, sacredness, the divine, God, I think these are all beautiful concepts for us each to discover through practice, and there are many concepts. Concepts can take us to a certain extent, but there's a dimension of this which must be experienced.
Mm-hmm.
That is deeply personal, also,
Mm-hmm.
each person. I really love this teaching from the Maggid of Metric, the Hasidic master who taught that, we look at basically our mystical tradition is full of maps that help us to perceive and interact with, relate to reality. And one of those maps is called the Pardes. It's an acronym for a way of relating to text, but also relating to experience. And the final dimension in that acronym is Sod, which means like what is the secretive, like the most esoteric, or it's understood as esoteric, like dimension of our experience. And he says, the Sod dimension, the dimension of the secretive, like the secret meaning of our experience, is not about it being really esoteric, actually. So esoteric that you can't understand it. It actually means that it must be experienced. It's something that must be experienced by each one of us. And that's why it can't really be comprehended or contained in a concept. And I want to just offer that something like holiness and Kedusha, I think, belongs in that realm as well of what must be experienced. There's something ineffable about that dimension of our experience. I know for myself, there are guideposts. Sometimes it feels like I'm really in touch with beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like I'm really in touch with the kind of unknowability and the mystery of life. But there is, for me, part of the beauty, part of the mystery is also a deep sense that it really matters. It really matters, and our impact on it and on one another really matters, and it can kind of naturally lead to that deep desire to relate then to what is sacred in a way that will be appropriate for sanctity, that will be nourishing, that will be life-giving. And so, I think that's why in our Torah, with all the teachings on I am holy, you must be holy, they're always accompanied by how. So this is how you do it. This is how you can treat your body, can treat your food, can treat the space in a way that will be supportive of its sanctity and that will help elevate its sanctity. And one more thing I want to say, Mark, is in the language of ascent, you're absolutely right. The language of ascent, ascending in holiness, ascending out of Egypt is very prevalent, but I want to also say that descent is equally as prevalent and equally as important. And our spiritual tradition is not just about ascending, it's also about ascending. It's about ascending and descending. And that's kind of a journey that is actually the nature of the Jewish spiritual path, that it's a constant kind of ascending and descending, and that's part of the holiness and part of the dance. And it's important to receive what we receive on the mountaintop and then bring it way back down all the way to earth, to the body, to our felt experience. So I want to just name that as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's it's a whole big topic right there, right? About the role of descent in Jewish mystical thought of descent for the sake of ascent, and also whether just those categories are illusory in the first place, right? That we are measuring success in that way. So thanks for that. But why don't we use the rest of our time? We've got 5-6 minutes here. I just wanted to kind of orient people, since you made reference to the Sefirot and the Midot and where we are in the calendar and in this flow. And I see there are questions about Gevura, and I thought you very, really skillfully invited us to. This is the day one of the week of Gevura, which began last night, right? So this is, as you mentioned, and each day, if you want to get into the weeds, as also each day of the week, since there are 7 Sefirot and there are 7 days of the week, each week is devoted to a particular Sefirah, and each day of the week kind of is dedicated to one of the seven sefirot, and so there's each different permutation every day. But just to keep things relatively simple for now, just stick with the week, right? This is the week of Gevura, of boundaries. And you're inviting us, as I understand it, to really think of, to bring awareness to our bodies as scaffolding, structure, and to have a posture that brings our attention to that scaffolding for the sake of experiencing something flowing through us, right? In this case, it's the first day of this week of the Omer, so Chesed is the sphera of that, and Chesed is overflowing, ever-present, ever-moving, unbounded love. So how the unbounded flows through the bounded. I just want to just invite you to riff on that a little bit about because someone was asking the question, I remember who, about what does it mean? What's the advice for someone who is it's a challenge to say no and establish boundaries. Someone else was mentioned showing up, which also I think is probably an expression of Gevurah, of using, setting a boundary to show up, not just to say no, but actually to be present. I was inviting us when we were taking our seats to use the Gevurah to say no to distraction and be present, etc. So I want to invite you to talk a little bit about what we mean by these concepts.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I'll first just acknowledge that I also definitely identify as someone who can sometimes have trouble saying no. Have a long-time history of being kind of a people pleaser, want to be able to say yes, do it all. And then, really the journey and the practice of acknowledging that I do have capacity and that boundaries are actually really important so that when I do say yes, I can fully say yes. So I'm trying to say yes to everything. Everything gets impacted by, the kind of lack of container there to really help me deliver on that yes. And so one thing that's really helpful for me when in the practice of saying no, especially when it's hard, is to remember that when I'm saying no to something, it's because I'm saying yes to something else, right? So if somebody is asking me to take on a big project, or there's a really great like new job opportunity, whatever it might be, and it's because I say no, even though I'm saying no to that really amazing, exciting thing, it's because I'm saying yes to wanting to create, for instance, more space for rest or play in my life. And so there's always a yes to be found on the other side of the no. And I'll also just say that Chesed and Gevurah, so on our Kabbalistic tree of life, Chesed and Gevurah are actually right next to each other. They actually balance each other. And our Sefirot are also not entirely separate. They're porous. They're always in relationship. They're all interrelating. Nothing exists in isolation. So even in my instruction to kind of, for this practice, consider how the container of the posture is like the Gevurah, the structure, and then the experience is the Chesed. They're never actually separate. And another way to think about it that might be helpful for practice is to just think about bringing a balance of Chesed and Gevurah to the posture itself. So how do we find that firmness and stability of Gevurah and that commitment to being present, to choosing a posture and committing to it, and at the same time softening and bringing gentleness and loving kindness. It's like we want to be like a reed, right? It's like we can flow and bend in the wind. We don't want to be too rigid. So that quality of ever-flowing, loving kindness, unconditional love, as well as the might and the discernment of Gevurah are always go together. And when they are in balance, they kind of meet in the middle to create harmony and beauty, which is associated with the heart space, actually, and the quality of Tiferet. And so something to just explore how both of those two qualities together can actually create an experience of compassion and harmony and even beauty. Whereas when there's just one of them or not enough of the other one, you don't always find that harmonic place of, where the heart can really shine through.
Beautifully expressed. So just to looking ahead, this week of Gurura. I want to invite people, especially since our container has kind of been on hiatus, and so we're kind of reestablishing the scaffolding for our practice together. We'll be back next week for a full week of practice, and want to invite people, as maybe as part of your practice of Gurura this week, to reset your intention to be present and to show up for your practice. Of course, kind of preaching to the choir here. You folks are here. It's great to be with you, and just want to invite you to explore the place of setting those boundaries and your own discipline, all for the sake of loving connection in the week ahead. So thanks so much, Rebecca, as always, and looking forward to Instagram Live this afternoon at 3 p.m. For those who are on Instagram, or may want to check out Instagram, IJS is at Jewish_spirituality is our, what do you call it, Rebecca, on Instagram?
Our handle.
Our handle, that's our handle, yeah. That's our handle on Instagram. So it's kind of cool. And Rebecca will be hosting Yoshi Silverstein Live at 3 p.m. Eastern today, so check that out. And we wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom and a good launch into the Omer, and we hope to see you back on Monday. Thanks so much, Kat, and thanks each of you for showing up and for your dedicated practice today. Shabbat Shalom.